I was working as a software developer when I met Amanda at my college friend's wedding. She was beautiful, smart, and seemed genuinely interested in me. After my previous girlfriend cheated, I was cautious about relationships, but Amanda felt different. Our first year together was nearly perfect until our anniversary dinner at that upscale restaurant. I had no idea Amanda had invited her childhood friend Katie without telling me. Throughout the evening, Katie made cutting jokes about my appearance career and relationship with Amanda. I tried to ignore them until I finally reached my breaking point. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, the son of a high school teacher and a nurse. My life was comfortable but modest compared to some of my wealthier classmates. I learned early on to value hard work over material possessions, a lesson that shaped my character. Before Amanda, I had been in a 3-year relationship that ended painfully when I discovered my ex-girlfriend had been cheating with her coworker for months. The betrayal left me questioning my judgment and hesitant to open my heart again. For almost a year, I avoided dating, completely focusing instead on my career in software development. I met Amanda at my college roommate's wedding. She was a bridesmaid and I was a groomsman, which meant we were paired together for various wedding events. From our first conversation during the rehearsal dinner, I was captivated by her intelligence and warmth. She worked as a marketing executive at a fashion company, and her passion when talking about her projects was infectious. At the wedding reception, we spent hours talking and dancing. She gave me her number without me having to ask, and by the next week we had our first official date at a small Italian restaurant near her apartment. What made Amanda special was how she helped rebuild my confidence. She listened patiently when I eventually shared about my previous relationship trauma, never judging or comparing herself to my ex. She encouraged me in my career ambitions and made me feel valued in ways I hadn't experienced before. We discovered numerous shared interests that strengthened our bond. We both loved hiking. The trails around Washington State were avid sci-fi fans and enjoyed trying new restaurants around the city. Our differences complemented each other too, her extroverted nature, balancing my more introverted tendencies. When she introduced me to her wider social circle, I felt accepted rather than out of place. The first 6 months with Amanda were nothing short of perfect. We fell into an easy rhythm together with weeknight dinners at one of our apartments and weekend adventures exploring the Pacific Northwest. We rarely argued, and when we did, we resolved conflicts quickly and respectfully. When her lease was ending at the 8-month mark, moving in together felt like the natural next step. I owned a small condo in a nice part of Seattle, and Amanda moved in with her carefully curated furniture and colorful art pieces that made my place feel instantly more like a home. Waking up next to her every morning, sharing coffee, and planning our days became my favorite part of each day. By our 1-year anniversary, I had started thinking about proposing. I even spoke with my best friend Mark about ring shopping and potential proposal ideas. Amanda was the person I wanted to build a life with, and I was almost certain she felt the same way. But in the weeks leading up to our anniversary, I noticed subtle shifts in Amanda's behavior. She seemed more distracted during our conversations, often checking her phone when we were together. I would occasionally catch her smiling at text messages, but quickly putting her phone away when I entered the room. Most of these texts, I later learned, were from her childhood friend Katie. Amanda mentioned Katie, occasionally describing her as a friend from her prep school days who had recently moved back to Seattle after several years abroad. According to Amanda, they were reconnecting after losing touch during college and their early careers. I was happy Amanda was rekindling an old friendship, though I found it odd that despite Katie being in town for several weeks, Amanda never suggested introducing us. Whenever I asked about meeting her friends, Amanda would vaguely agree it was a good idea, but never made concrete plans. At the time, I dismissed my concerns, not wanting to appear controlling or insecure. For our anniversary, I wanted to create a special evening that showed Amanda how much she meant to me. I researched the best restaurants in Seattle and made a reservation at Altura, an upscale Italian place known for its intimate atmosphere and exceptional cuisine. The prices were well beyond what I would normally spend on dinner, but I had been saving specifically for this occasion, wanting to make it memorable. I secured a reservation 3 weeks in advance, requesting a quiet corner table with a view of the restaurant's open kitchen. The day before our dinner, I confirmed everything with the restaurant, ensuring they knew it was our anniversary celebration. On the evening of our anniversary, I left work early to get ready, putting on my best suit, the one I typically saved for job interviews and formal events. It was navy blue with subtle gray pinstripes that Amanda once mentioned, brought out the color of my eyes. I even splurged on a professional haircut that week and purchased a new tie for the occasion. When Amanda arrived home from work, she seemed pleasantly surprised by my appearance, commenting that she rarely saw me so dressed up. She disappeared into our bedroom to prepare and emerged an hour later looking stunning in a black cocktail dress that elegantly highlighted her figure. With her blonde hair styled in loose waves and minimal jewelry accentuating her outfit, she looked breathtaking. We arrived at the restaurant right on time for our 7:30 reservation. The hostess smiled warmly and led us to our table, where I immediately noticed something was wrong. There were 3 place settings instead of 2. Before I could question this, Amanda casually mentioned that Katie would be joining us. The way she said it with studied nonchalance made it clear she had planned this all along but deliberately hadn't told me. My heart sank, but I tried to maintain a positive attitude despite my disappointment. I took a deep breath and asked why she had invited someone else to our anniversary dinner without discussing it with me first. Amanda brushed off my concerns, saying Katie had just gone through a bad breakup and needed cheering up. She added that since Katie was new to town again, she wanted her closest friend and boyfriend to meet. While I understood her compassion for her friend, I couldn't help feeling that our special evening had been hijacked. 20 minutes after our arrival, during which Amanda constantly checked her phone, Katie finally made her entrance. She walked through the restaurant, as if on a runway, drawing attention from several tables with her confident stride and loud greeting when she spotted Amanda. Katie was tall, with perfectly styled red hair and designer clothes that even I could tell were expensive. She embraced Amanda with dramatic affection, holding the hug for what seemed like an uncomfortably long time before finally acknowledging my presence. When Amanda introduced us, Katie barely made eye contact, offering a limp handshake and immediately turning back to Amanda to continue a conversation they had apparently been having via text all day. As they chatted about people I had never heard of and inside jokes from their school days, I sat quietly, feeling increasingly like an uninvited spectator. During a brief lull in their conversation, I learned that Katie and Amanda had grown up in the same wealthy neighborhood and attended an exclusive private school together. Katie's father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across the West Coast, while Amanda's family had made their fortune in real estate development. This shared background of privilege created a bond that felt impenetrable to an outsider like me. Within the first 15 minutes of Katie's arrival, she had already made several subtle digs at my profession. When Amanda mentioned I worked as a software developer, Katie asked if I was one of those tech support guys who answers phones all day. When I tried to explain that I actually developed applications for a healthcare company, she cut me off to ask Amanda about a mutual acquaintance's new yacht. As our server approached to take our drink orders, I knew this evening was going to be very different from what I had planned. The anniversary celebration I had spent months saving for and weeks anticipating was slipping away, and there seemed to be nothing I could do about it. The server arrived with the wine list, and Katie immediately took charge, suggesting they order a bottle of Barolo that I recognized from the menu as being priced at over $200. Before I could suggest something more moderate, she had convinced Amanda it was the perfect choice for a celebration, pointedly not looking in my direction as she made the recommendation. As the expensive wine was poured and the first course arrived, Katie continued to dominate the conversation with stories about her travels through Europe and her job at a prestigious fashion magazine. Whenever I tried to participate in the discussion, Katie would either talk over me or respond with a brief acknowledgement before redirecting the conversation back to her experiences or shared memories with Amanda. I made several attempts to engage by asking Katie questions about her work or travels, genuinely trying to find common ground. Each time her answers were curt before turning back to Amanda with comments like, "Remember that time we snuck into your parents' cabin with those boys from Street Marks," followed by laughter that clearly excluded me from the joke. What hurt more than Katie's behavior was watching Amanda laugh along instead of making any effort to include me in their conversations. Occasionally, Amanda would place her hand on mine, or give me a quick smile, small gestures that felt like token acknowledgments rather than genuine inclusion. As our appetizers arrived, Katie took things to a new level by directly questioning whether I could afford the restaurant. She picked up the menu again, looking at the prices with raised eyebrows before asking Amanda, "Is this really where you guys usually eat? I always thought you had more expensive taste." Amanda laughed uncomfortably, but did not defend me. I calmly mentioned that while we enjoyed many types of restaurants, I had chosen Altura specifically for our anniversary because of its reputation. Katie glanced at my wrist and commented on my watch, a modest Seiko that had been a college graduation gift from my parents. "That is cute," she said. "Did you know Amanda's ex Dylan wore a Rolex? He had the most amazing collection of watches. I think the one he gave Amanda for her birthday last year was worth more than this entire dinner." I felt my face flush with embarrassment, both from the direct comparison and the revelation that Amanda had apparently kept an expensive gift from her ex-boyfriend. When I glanced at Amanda questioningly, she looked away suddenly, very interested in her plate. The jokes continued throughout the main course, with Katie finding new ways to highlight my perceived shortcomings. She commented on my height, suggesting that Amanda usually preferred taller men. She critiqued my clothing style, calling it safe and predictable, compared to the fashionable men in their social circle. Most painful were the comments suggesting Amanda was settling by being with me, references to how her family had expected her to marry someone from their elite social class. Each comment landed like a small cut, painful individually but devastating in their accumulation. With each remark, I was transported back to painful memories from high school, where I had been bullied for being less affluent than many of my classmates. I remembered similar feelings of exclusion from my previous relationship, where my ex-girlfriend had often made me feel inadequate around her wealthier friends before eventually cheating on me. As I sat there, enduring Katie's barrage of thinly veiled insults, an internal battle raged. Part of me wanted to respond forcefully, to stand up for myself, and call out the inappropriate behavior. Another part feared that confrontation would only validate Katie's apparent belief that I was not good enough for Amanda. Most of all, I was developing a growing resentment toward Amanda herself for allowing this treatment to continue unchallenged. I tried to maintain my composure, reminding myself that this was still our anniversary dinner and that confronting Katie might only make things worse. But with each passing minute and each new jab, my patience wore thinner. The expensive meal I had been so excited to share with Amanda now sat heavy in my stomach, unenjoyable in the toxic atmosphere. After a particularly cutting remark from Katie about my career prospects compared to Amanda's ex, I decided to try addressing the situation directly with Amanda. I asked if I could speak with her privately for a moment, hoping we could step away from the table briefly. Before Amanda could respond, Katie interjected with a mocking trouble in paradise. "Need to have a private chat already." Amanda shifted uncomfortably but remained seated, refusing my request with a dismissive, "Whatever you need to say you can. Say here. We are all friends." Realizing Amanda was not going to offer me the courtesy of a private conversation, I gathered my courage and addressed my discomfort directly at the table. I calmly explained that I felt some of the comments being made were disrespectful, and that I had hoped our anniversary dinner would be a more positive experience. Katie responded with an exaggerated eye roll and leaned over to whisper something to Amanda that made her chuckle nervously. This reaction hurt more than any of the previous comments, confirming that Amanda was not only allowing the disrespect, but participating in it. As dessert menus were presented, Katie delivered what would become the final straw. Looking directly at me, she said, "You know, Amanda and I were talking last week about whether you are really husband material like Dylan was." I mean, he was already planning to propose before they broke up, had the family ring and everything. She sighed dramatically. Some men just know how to provide security, you know. This comment revealed two painful truths simultaneously. First, that Katie and Amanda had been having private conversations evaluating my worth as a potential husband, and second, that Amanda had been comparing me to her ex with her friend. The betrayal of trust cut deep, and I could feel my hands shaking slightly under the table. I turned to Amanda and asked directly, "Have you been discussing our relationship with Katie and comparing me to your ex?" Amanda's face flushed, and her defensive response told me everything I needed to know. "I am allowed to talk to my friends about my life, John. You are being oversensitive. Katie is just joking around. This is how she is with everyone." Katie smirked at this defense, clearly pleased to have created friction between us. I realized in that moment that the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had been planning to propose to, was willing to sacrifice my dignity for the approval of someone who took pleasure in my humiliation. The tension at our table was palpable as Katie launched into her most vicious comparison yet. She swirled her wine glass dramatically before speaking. "You know what Amanda and I were discussing the other day? How Dylan always knew exactly which investments to make. His family has that summer house in the Hamptons now, and he just bought that penthouse downtown." She turned to face me directly for the first time that evening. "What is the biggest investment you have made?" "John, that Honda Civic parked outside." The restaurant around us seemed to go quiet, though. In reality, it was likely just my heightened awareness of our increasingly uncomfortable table. I could feel other diners occasionally glancing our way, noticing the obvious discomfort in my expression and Katie's increasingly loud remarks. I took a slow, deliberate breath and turned to Amanda. "I think your friend has crossed several lines tonight. This was supposed to be our anniversary dinner, and I would appreciate if you would acknowledge that her comments have been inappropriate." Amanda looked between Katie and me, clearly torn between loyalty to her childhood friend and her boyfriend of 1 year. In that crucial moment, she made her choice. "If you cannot handle my friend's jokes, John, just pay and leave," she said, her voice carrying an edge I had never heard before. "Katie is just being Katie. You are embarrassing me by being so sensitive." The restaurant did go quiet then, at least in our immediate vicinity. I could see a couple at a nearby table exchange uncomfortable glances. Our server, who had been approaching with coffee, tactfully retreated to give us space. In that moment of public humiliation, something crystallized within me. A strange calm replaced the hurt and anger that had been building all evening. I realized that the woman I had planned to build a future with was willing to watch me be belittled rather than risk upsetting her friend. No amount of love could compensate for such fundamental disrespect. I slowly stood up from the table, maintaining my composure despite the emotions churning inside me. I reached into my pocket and took out my car keys, placing them deliberately on the table. The metal made a small but distinct sound against the fine tablecloth. "Where are you going?" Amanda asked, her expression shifting from dismissive to concerned as she realized I was actually leaving. Katie maintained her smug smile, clearly believing she had won whatever competition she had created in her mind. She leaned back in her chair with the satisfied look of someone who had successfully asserted dominance. I simply stated that I was going to do exactly as Amanda suggested. I was going to pay and leave. Without another word, I caught the eye of our server and gestured that I would like the check. The waiter approached with the leather-bound bill folder, and I thanked him quietly. Opening it, I saw the total amount was nearly $400, including the expensive wine Katie had ordered, multiple appetizers, 3 main courses, and the desserts that had just been delivered. I carefully reviewed the itemized receipt, taking my time to identify exactly what I had consumed during the evening: my appetizer, my main course, and the single glass of wine I had ordered before Katie arrived and took over the drink selections. I calculated my portion of the bill, which came to approximately $70 before tax. I placed $85 in the folder, ensuring I included a generous tip for the server, who had been professional throughout our uncomfortable evening. I then handed the bill back to the waiter, clearly stating, "This covers my meal and my portion of the tip. Thank you for your excellent service tonight." As the reality of what I was doing dawned on Katie and Amanda, their expressions transformed. Katie's smug smile vanished, replaced by confusion that quickly morphed into outrage. Amanda's face paled as she realized the implications. "You cannot be serious," Amanda said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am entirely serious," I replied calmly. "Since I have been made to feel unwelcome at this dinner that I planned and saved, for I am only responsible for my portion." Katie ordered the expensive wine and additional appetizers without consulting me, so those are not my responsibility. Katie's laughter died abruptly as she processed what was happening. "But I did not bring my wallet," she blurted out, looking to Amanda expectantly. "I thought this was your anniversary dinner. The man is supposed to pay." I looked directly at Katie for the first time that evening, without flinching or looking away. That is a surprisingly traditional view from someone who has spent the evening implying, "I am not man enough for Amanda." I then turned to Amanda, who was frantically opening her purse to check her credit cards. Our eyes met, and in that moment I knew our relationship was effectively over. Nevertheless, I needed to say what had gone unsaid all evening. Relationships are built on mutual respect, Amanda. Tonight has shown me where I stand with you. I deserve a partner who stands with me, not someone who allows others to tear me down for their entertainment. I hope you find what you are looking for, but it is clear to me now that we want different things. With those words, I walked away from the table, maintaining my dignity, despite hearing the beginning of an argument between Katie and Amanda about how they would cover the remaining bill. As I passed the host stand, I briefly explained the situation and apologized for any disruption. The hostess gave me an understanding nod that suggested this was not the first relationship to end in their establishment. The cool evening air hit my face as I exited the restaurant, bringing with it a strange mixture of grief and relief. I got into my car, the same Honda Civic that Katie had mocked, and sat for a moment processing the events of the evening. My phone began buzzing with texts and calls from Amanda almost immediately, but I silenced it without reading the messages. Instead of driving home to the condo we shared, I called my best friend Mark. After briefly explaining the situation, he insisted I come stay at his apartment. Though part of me wanted to be alone with my thoughts, I knew isolation would only deepen my pain that night. I was grateful for Mark's unwavering support, a stark contrast to what I had experienced at dinner. As I drove across the city to Mark's place, the full weight of what had happened began to sink in. The relationship I had invested in so deeply was over. The future I had imagined with Amanda had dissolved in a single evening. Yet beneath the pain there was an undeniable sense that I had finally stood up for myself in a way I had failed to do in past relationships. That knowledge, small comfort though it was in the moment, would prove crucial in the healing process to come. In the days that followed, my phone became a battleground of emotions. Amanda's messages ranged from angry accusations to tearful apologies, often shifting between the two within minutes. "I have never seen you act so childish," one text would read, followed shortly by, "I miss you, please talk to me. I need to explain." Katie took to social media, posting a distorted version of events that painted me as cheap and controlling. According to her public posts, I had embarrassed Amanda and walked out on our anniversary dinner because I could not afford it. Several of their mutual friends commented with supportive messages, having only heard one side of the story. Fortunately, my own friends rallied around me. Mark had witnessed my excitement planning the dinner and knew how much the relationship had meant to me. He and a few other close friends helped me maintain perspective when the public humiliation threatened to overwhelm me. 3 days after the dinner incident, I returned to our shared condo during Amanda's work hours to collect essential belongings. The sight of our home filled with memories of happier times made the process painfully difficult. I focused on gathering only what I needed immediately: personal items, clothes, my work, laptop, leaving furniture, and shared purchases behind for later discussion. As I packed, I found the small velvet box I had hidden in my sock drawer weeks earlier. Inside was not an engagement ring, as I had not yet made that purchase, but a pair of sapphire earrings I had been saving to give Amanda as an anniversary gift. I placed the box on her pillow, a final reminder of what might have been. The process of untangling our lives proved complicated. We had a joint checking account for household expenses, shared streaming subscriptions, and friends who now felt forced to choose sides. Each disconnection felt like severing another thread that had bound us together, painful but necessary. 2 weeks after the restaurant incident, Amanda asked to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop, halfway between her office and mine. I agreed, feeling we both deserved proper closure, rather than ending things through text messages and intermediaries. She arrived at the coffee shop looking tired, her usual polished appearance somewhat diminished. We ordered our drinks and sat at a corner table, the awkward silence between us a stark contrast to the easy conversations we once shared. "I am so sorry about what happened, John," she finally said, eyes welling with tears. "I got caught between my oldest friend and the man I love. I froze and made the wrong choice." I listened as she explained that Katie had always been jealous of her relationships, subtly sabotaging them throughout their friendship. According to Amanda, Katie had recently gone through a divorce and had been leaning heavily on her for support, making her feel obligated to prioritize the friendship. "I cannot excuse how I behaved," she continued. "I should have defended you. I should never have invited her to our special dinner without discussing it first. I was trying to please everyone, and ended up hurting the person who matters most." Despite the sincerity in her apology, I knew too much damage had been done. Trust once broken is like a shattered mirror. You can try to piece it back together, but the cracks remain visible. "I appreciate your apology, Amanda," I said gently, "and I understand the complexity of old friendships. But that night revealed fundamental differences in how we view relationships and respect. You allowed someone to repeatedly disrespect me, and when I asked for your support, you told me to leave." We talked for nearly 2 hours, revisiting our relationship and acknowledging the good alongside the bad. Amanda admitted that Katie had always made subtle comments about me not fitting into their social circle, and that she had sometimes defended these conversations as normal friend talk rather than recognizing them as the undermining influence they were. As our conversation drew to a close, we reached the mutual conclusion that while we had loved each other, the trust between us had been damaged beyond repair. The foundation upon which we might have built a future together had cracked, and no amount of regret could fully restore it. We parted with a brief hug and wishes for each other's happiness, both of us carrying the bittersweet knowledge that sometimes love is not enough when fundamental respect is missing. In the following weeks, I experienced the familiar cycle of breakup emotions. There were moments when I questioned my decision, wondering if I had overreacted at the restaurant, or if I should have given our relationship another chance. There were nights when loneliness felt overwhelming, and I reached for my phone to call Amanda before stopping myself. I struggled with feelings of inadequacy, Katie's comments about my career, income, and social standing echoing in my mind during vulnerable moments. Was I really not good enough? Would I always be judged for not coming from wealth or having the right connections? Recognizing these thoughts were becoming toxic, I made the decision to start therapy. My health insurance covered bi-weekly sessions, and I found a therapist who specialized in self-esteem issues and relationship trauma. These sessions provided a safe space to process not only the recent breakup, but also the lingering effects of my previous relationship and childhood experiences that had shaped my self-perception. Through therapy, I began to recognize unhealthy patterns in my relationships and develop tools for establishing and maintaining boundaries. I learned that standing up for myself at the restaurant had not been an overreaction but a healthy assertion of self-worth that was long overdue. While working through these emotional challenges, I channeled additional energy into my career. I volunteered for a challenging project at work that involved developing a new patient management system. The focus required helped distract from personal pain, and the successful completion earned me recognition from senior management. I also reconnected with friends I had somewhat neglected during my relationship with Amanda. Weekend hiking trips, game nights, and simple conversations over beers reminded me that my worth was not determined by one person's perception or by comparison to others with different backgrounds or resources. Approximately 6 months after our breakup, I unexpectedly ran into Amanda and Katie at a local charity event. I had been invited by a coworker who served on the organization's board and had decided to attend as part of my efforts to expand my social circle beyond familiar comfort zones. I spotted them across the room before they noticed me. They were standing together but with noticeable distance between them, their body language suggesting tension rather than the intimate friendship I had witnessed at our dinner. Katie saw me first and quickly averted her gaze, making a point to engage with another guest rather than acknowledge my presence. Her discomfort was evident, a stark contrast to her confident demeanor at the restaurant. Amanda approached me a few minutes later when I was getting a drink at the bar. She looked well, having regained the confident posture and warm smile that had first attracted me to her. "Hi, John," she said simply. "You look good." Our conversation was brief but surprisingly comfortable. She mentioned she had received a promotion at work and was considering a transfer to her company's New York office. When I asked about Katie, a shadow crossed her face. "We had a falling out after that night," she admitted. Once I had time to reflect on what happened, I realized Katie had been doing similar things throughout our friendship. I confronted her about it, and let us just say it did not go well. We still see each other at events like this, but things are different now. Before we parted ways, Amanda added something that helped provide final closure. "You deserved better than how I treated you, John. I want you to know I recognize that now. I hope you find someone who appreciates you fully and stands by your side the way a true partner should." As we said goodbye, I felt not the ache of lingering attachment, but the peaceful release of resentment. The interaction left me with closure, rather than reopened wounds, confirming that I had made the right decision that night at the restaurant. Over the following months, I continued to focus on personal growth. I joined a local rock climbing gym, challenging myself physically while meeting new people who shared similar interests. I took a creative writing class at a community center, exploring a passion I had neglected for years. These activities helped rebuild my confidence in ways that extended beyond romantic relationships. A year after the fateful anniversary dinner, my life had transformed in unexpected ways. The promotion I earned from the successful patient management system project came with a significant salary increase and greater creative control over my work. I had moved into a new apartment in a different neighborhood, creating a fresh space that held no memories of my relationship with Amanda. Most significantly, I had begun dating someone new, Sarah, who I met through a mutual friend. Our relationship developed slowly and thoughtfully, both of us bringing lessons from past experiences. When we encountered disagreements or challenges, Sarah demonstrated the partnership I had always hoped for, facing issues together rather than leaving me to stand alone. One evening, as Sarah and I were having dinner with her close friends, one of them made a joke at my expense about my preference for science fiction movies. Before I could respond, Sarah jumped in with a light but firm, "Hey, now sci-fi movies are classics for a reason. Plus, his excellent taste is one of the things I love about him." It was a small moment, but it highlighted the fundamental difference in our relationship. Where Amanda had chosen loyalty to a toxic friendship over supporting me, Sarah naturally stood with me without diminishing her friendships. It was not about controlling what others said, but about the instinctive solidarity that forms the foundation of a healthy partnership. As I reflect on that anniversary dinner now, I see it not as a failure, but as a pivotal moment of growth. Had I stayed with Amanda, accepting the disrespect as normal, I would have continued a pattern of diminishing my own worth to maintain relationships. By walking away, quite literally, I took the first step toward valuing myself enough to expect better. The lesson I carry forward is not about avoiding conflict or protecting my ego at all costs. Rather, it is about recognizing that true partnership means standing together, supporting each other in public and private, and never finding entertainment in another's humiliation. It is about understanding that walking away from disrespect is not weakness, but strength, a recognition of one's inherent value that no external validation can replace. Setting boundaries ultimately led to greater happiness than I could have imagined on that painful night when I stood up, took my keys, and walked out of the restaurant. By paying only for my meal, I was not just making a statement about the dinner bill, but declaring that I would no longer pay the emotional price for relationships that required me to diminish myself. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? How did it change your path? Leave a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in challenging moments. And remember, sometimes walking away is the most powerful step forward you can take. Thank you for listening to my story today, and I hope it helps you recognize your own worth in all your relationships.